Today we're making shakshuka, poached eggs nestled in a spicy tomato pepper sauce. This Tunisian favorite is perfect for a special occasion or really on any day. So let's get right to the ingredients. Today you're going to need some crushed tomatoes. Whole tomatoes are fine. Do not use diced tomatoes. Diced tomatoes are coated with an enzyme to keep them from breaking down, which is great in a salad or a salsa, but that's not what we're looking for in this dish. Some brown sugar, garlic, oil. I used a neutral oil, but you can also use olive oil, and some chopped green onions. We're going to need some eggs, some chopped peppers. Roasted red pepper is traditional, but I added some orange and yellow for additional color and flavor. We'll need some coriander, some cumin, and some chipotle. I used a 2-to-1 ratio cumin to coriander because I really like that strong cumin flavor. We'll also need some green onions and parsley for garnish. So now it's time to cook. In a hot pan, add your oil. Let your oil heat up 20 to 30 seconds depending on how hot your pan was to start. Once your oil is hot, you can add your peppers. Place your peppers in one layer in the pan so they cook evenly. Your pan should be on medium-high heat. Leave everything undisturbed for about 2 minutes. After that 2 minutes is up, you can go ahead and add your onions. Spread your onions out into a single layer amongst your peppers, and then once again let everything sit for a good 2, maybe 3 minutes. After that 2 minutes is up, go ahead and give everything a stir. As you can see, my pan is fairly dry here, and that's fine because you can also see that we're starting to get a little char on the peppers. Do not worry about that because traditional recipes actually call for roasted red peppers, so the additional char is just going to add some flavor to our dish. So once you get everything stirred and kind of settled back into the pan, just let it sit again for another 2-3 minutes. Make a well in the center and you can add your garlic. I always like to add the garlic late because you have less of a chance of it burning. So spread the garlic out in your well, let that sit for about 30 seconds or so just to start to warm through. After about 30 seconds, you can add in your spices. So go ahead and add in your spices all at once. The spices are all fat soluble, so because there is some residual fat in the pan, that'll help the spices bloom, but also the pan is dry enough that your spices begin to toast. So once you get all that stirred in, it's time to add the brown sugar. Brown sugar tends to be my secret ingredient. I use it because it kind of hides in the background and adds a nice depth to the recipe. Completely break up the lumps of brown sugar. Once you've done that, stir everything together and let it sit for 15-20 seconds. Now it's time to add the tomatoes. I chose to spoon them in here because I wasn't sure that the entire 28 ounces would fit in the pan that I chose. And in fact, I was right. I had about 8 to 10 ounces left over. But had I used a larger pan, the 28 ounce can of tomatoes would have been perfect. At the end of this video, I'll share a little hack with you to get to this point in the recipe a little sooner. I do think you sacrifice some of the flavor and the intensity of this sauce to get there. Bring your sauce to a boil. Cover it and let it cook for about 10 to 15 minutes just to get all of your flavors together and the peppers and onions to flavor your sauce. After about 15 minutes, you can uncover your sauce or you can leave it partially covered. Nothing splashes like tomatoes, so in this case I chose to partially cover it, in part just to protect my camera. After about 10 minutes, you can remove the lid and you can see how much this sauce is thickened. It's actually thickened up very nicely. Now that your sauce is thickened, it's time to make a well. That's just a place where you can nestle the eggs in so they can gently poach. Crack your eggs in separate bowls just to make sure that you don't have any shells in them, and also to make sure in that 1 in 1,000 chance that you get that bad egg, it will not ruin your dish and probably ruin your appetite. Gently drop the eggs in the sauce, being very careful to make sure that you don't break the yolks. Cover the pan and poach the eggs to your desired texture. Some people like the yolks really runny, some like them a little more set. I prefer them runny. Start checking after about 6 minutes or so. These actually went about 10 minutes. But as you can see, the yolk is set up firmly and the whites are set as well. And now that you've cooked it, it's time to serve it, eat it, and enjoy it. Shakshuka is traditionally served with bread. Pita bread is the traditional option, but in my case I chose sourdough because I had it on hand and I like the flavor. I was a little disappointed in the eggs. They were slightly overcooked for my taste. I prefer my yolks to be a little runny. I think when you cut into the egg and that yolk spreads throughout the dish, it just adds an extra richness. But even though the egg was slightly overcooked, it still tastes really good. As soon as you take that first bite, you're immediately hit with that cumin. And then the chipotle kind of sneaks up on you in the background. It's not spicy, but it adds a smoky depth in behind everything else. And you can see how thick this sauce is. It's not runny, it's really thick and chunky. It turned out really good and it tastes really, really good. You can use just a jarred tomato sauce of your liking as well as a can of roasted red peppers. You would still need to cook them together for a few minutes and add the spices, but that will save you a good 10-15 minutes in your cooking time. But tasting this one today, it was definitely worth that little bit of extra effort. Please check out this next video so we can continue this culinary journey together.
On behalf of the flight crew, thank you for flying with us and have a pleasant day.